Nothing looks wrong at first. The streets are still full. Stores are still open. Banks still smile behind polished glass. People still go to work, still buy coffee, still talk about plans for future. That's how every collapse begins. Not with chaos, not with panic, not with empty shelves or riots. It begins with normality. In 1928, New York felt unstoppable. Stocks were rising. Credit was easy. Everyone felt richer. Newspapers talked about a new era of permanent prosperity. Business leaders said downturns were a thing of the past. The system had evolved. This time was different. Nothing looked broken. In 1999, it was the same story. Tech stocks exploded upward. Companies with no profits, no products, sometimes not even revenue, were valued higher than century-old businesses. Analysts rewrote the rules. Valuation didn't matter anymore. Growth was infinite. Risk was obsolete. Nothing looked wrong. In 2007, housing prices had never fallen nationwide. Banks were lending to anyone with a pulse. Mortgages were sliced, repackaged, and sold as safe. Credit rating agencies stamped approval on everything. Economists went on television and said the system was strong. Nothing looked dangerous. And in 2019, global markets were at all-time highs. Debt was cheap. Money was everywhere. Governments promised stability. Central banks promised control. Inflation was contained. Growth was sustainable. Everything looked normal. That's the pattern. Collapse never announces itself. It doesn't arrive with sirens. It doesn't warn you with headlines that say this is the beginning of the end. It hides inside comfort, inside routine, inside confidence. The most dangerous moment in any economic cycle is the moment when everyone feels safe. Because when systems actually fail, they don't fail suddenly. They weaken quietly. Pressure builds where no one is looking. Small distortions are ignored. Temporary fixes become permanent. Risk doesn't disappear. It just moves out of sight. And the people inside the system stayed calm for stability. Before the Great Depression, banks didn't collapse first. Confidence did. Before hyperinflation, currencies didn't implode overnight. Purchasing power leaked slowly. Before financial crises, debt doesn't explode. It accumulates silently. By the time panic appears, the outcome is already locked in. That's why history keeps repeating the same mistake. People prepare for visible disasters. They stockpile for emergencies. They react to headlines. But they never prepare for the quiet phase, the phase where everything still works, where nothing looks urgent, where warnings sound exaggerated and pessimistic. And that phase is always the last chance to act. Because once the collapse becomes obvious, options disappear. Liquidity vanishes. Prices distort. Rules change. Governments intervene. And survival becomes reaction, not strategy. Every empire that fell followed this path. Every currency collapse. Every financial panic. Normal until it wasn't. And right now, once again, the world feels normal. Markets fluctuate, but recover. Debt grows, but is dismissed. Currencies weaken, but are trusted. Institutions promise control. The warning signs aren't loud. They never are. They're subtle. They're boring. They're easy to ignore. And that's exactly why most people miss them. In the next block, we're going to break down why collapses always feel safe at the beginning, what signals history shows before the visible breakdown, and how those signals appear long before the headlines change. Stability is one of the greatest illusions ever sold. It doesn't come from strength. It comes from delay. Every system can absorb stress for a while. Governments can borrow longer than expected. Banks can roll over bad debt. Central banks can inject liquidity. Markets can be reassured. Confidence can be maintained. And as long as that delay exists, everything appears functional. That's why collapses never start where people expect. They don't begin with unemployment lines. They don't begin with empty banks. They don't begin with riots. They begin with policies designed to smooth things out. In the late 1920s, Margin debt was exploding. People were buying stocks with borrowed money. When cracks started to form, officials didn't warn the public. They reassured them. They lowered rates. They encouraged confidence. They said volatility was temporary. The delay worked briefly. In the 70s, inflation didn't arrive as a shock. It crept in. Prices rose slowly enough to be ignored. Wages lagged just enough to feel manageable. Governments insisted it was transitory. Central banks hesitated to act because acting would cause pain. The system stayed stable until it couldn't. In 2008, the warning signs were everywhere. Rising defaults, complex financial products no one fully understood, housing prices disconnected from incomes. But interventions masked the danger. Bailouts were prepared quietly. Liquidity was injected behind the scenes. For a while, the system held. This is where most people misunderstand collapse. They think collapse is an event. It isn't. Collapse is a process, a long one. First comes distortion, then comes normalization, then comes dependency. Distortion happens when prices stop reflecting reality. Normalization happens when people get used to it. Dependency happens when the system can no longer function without intervention. By the time failure arrives, it feels sudden, but only because the groundwork was laid years earlier. And during that entire time, life looks ordinary. People still save money. They still trust institutions. They still plan decades into the future. They still believe tomorrow will resemble today. That belief is what allows collapse to finish its work. Because systems don't fail when people panic. They fail when people comply. They fail when individuals accept lower purchasing power as normal. They fail when debt replaces productivity. They fail when risk is disguised as safety. And the longer stability is artificially maintained, the more violent the correction becomes. That's why collapses that feel sudden are usually the ones delayed the longest. History doesn't punish mistakes immediately. It compounds them. And the most dangerous part is this. The phase of calm creates false confidence in the system itself. People don't just feel safe. They feel validated. They say things like, "It's been predicted for years and nothing happened." They always say the system is about to collapse. If it were really broken, we'd see it by now. Those words have been spoken before every major collapse in history, right before the turn, because the system doesn't need to convince everyone. It only needs enough people to stay passive. In the next block, we're going to look at the specific signals that appear during this everything looks fine phase, not dramatic events, but quiet shifts that always show up before the structure gives way. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Every major collapse in history shares a disturbing feature. It doesn't feel like collapse while it's happening. It feels normal. Markets still open. Stores still sell products. Governments still speak calmly. News anchors still smile. Life continues. And that's precisely why most people stay exposed until it's too late. Before Rome fell, citizens still paid taxes. They still trusted the currency. They still believed reforms would fix everything. Inflation didn't arrive as a shock. It arrived slowly, quietly, diluted over decades. Coins were clipped. Silver content reduced. Prices rose, then rose again, each step small enough to ignore. No single moment screamed collapse. The same thing happened in Weimar Germany. Inflation didn't start with wheelbarrows of cash. It started with mild price increases, then shortages, then wage adjustments. People adapted. They always do. And adaptation is what traps them. In the United States during the 1970s, inflation eroded purchasing power year after year. Not overnight. Slowly, relentlessly. People blamed oil, then wages, then corporations. Very few understood the structural problem underneath. Collapse hide behind explanations. There's always a reason. A war, a crisis, a virus, a supply shock, an emergency. And every time, Governments respond the same way. More debt, more currency creation, more promises. And every time, the public believes this time will be different. But here's the pattern no one wants to acknowledge. Collapse doesn't announce itself as destruction. It announces itself as management. Managed decline, managed inflation, managed debt, managed expectations. That's why the most dangerous phase of any collapse is the early one, when everything still looks functional, when people are still confident, when systems still appear stable. Because by the time fear becomes widespread, the exits are already closed. Look at 2008. The housing market didn't collapse in a day. Prices softened, then flattened, then dipped slightly. Analysts called it a healthy correction. Banks reassured investors. Rating agencies maintained confidence. And then suddenly liquidity vanished. The collapse was not sudden. Awareness was. And when awareness arrived, it was already too late for most people to act. History shows this over and over again. The people who survive collapses are not the smartest. They are not the fastest. They are simply the ones who recognize the pattern early enough to reposition. They move while things still look normal. That's the critical distinction. And it brings us to a deeper truth that most financial education avoids entirely. Collapses are not financial events. They are psychological ones. People don't lose wealth because numbers change. They lose wealth because they trust systems longer than they should. They anchor to the familiar. They assume continuity. They believe institutions will protect them because they always have, until they don't. And when trust finally breaks, it breaks all at once. That's why understanding collapse isn't about predicting dates. It's about understanding human behavior under slow stress. Because slow stress is invisible. And that's exactly where we are right now. The signs are not dramatic. They're boring. Persistent deficits, expanding debt, currency dilution, asset inflation disconnected from productivity, political polarization, social tension. None of these scream collapse. Together, they whisper it. And history tells us whispers are always ignored. Every collapse leaves signal behind. Not warnings. Signals. Warnings are loud. Signals are subtle. They appear in behavior, not headlines. In incentives, not speeches. In what governments do quietly, not in what they say publicly. Before empires fall, they always try to preserve the appearance of stability. They subsidize. They regulate. They intervene. They delay consequences. And for a while, it works. Rome introduced price controls. Weimar printed money to meet obligations. Modern governments expand debt to maintain growth. Different eras. Same response. The goal is never to fix the system. The goal is to buy time. And buying time always has a cost. When governments intervene heavily, markets stop sending honest signals. Prices no longer reflect reality. Risk becomes invisible. And when risk is invisible, people overexpose themselves. This is where collapses accelerate. Because once trust in pricing disappears, everything else follows. Currencies weaken quietly at first. Purchasing power erodes slowly. People adjust their expectations downward without realizing it. They call it the new normal. This phrase appears in every collapsing society. The new normal of higher prices. The new normal of lower quality. The new normal of debt-funded living. Nothing feels dramatic enough to trigger action. And that's why action doesn't happen. Another signal is institutional desperation. When systems are healthy, they don't need constant emergency measures. They don't require endless stimulus. They don't redefine rules mid-game. Stability doesn't need justification. Fragility does. Historically, the more complex the interventions become, the closer the system is to failure. Complexity is not strength. It's a sign that the system can no longer function naturally. Rome's bureaucracy exploded before its fall. Late-stage empires always drown in administration. Modern systems are no different. Rules multiply. Exceptions increase. Temporary measures become permanent, and the public slowly loses clarity about how anything actually works. That confusion is not accidental. It's structural. And confusion benefits those closest to power, not those dependent on stability. One of the most overlooked signals before collapse is moral inversion. Hard work stops being rewarded proportionally. Speculation replaces productivity. Debt is praised. Prudence is mocked. Saving feels pointless. Risk feels necessary. This psychological shift is devastating. Because once a society reaches this stage, behavior changes faster than policy can respond. People stop thinking long-term. They chase protection, not growth. They seek assets that feel solid in an increasingly abstract world. This is the moment when capital quietly migrates, not in panic, in silence. And the people who notice this migration early are never the ones making noise. They are not on television. They are not issuing warnings. They are repositioning. Because history has taught them something most people never learn. Collapses don't reward reaction. They reward preparation. And preparation happens before certainty exists, which leads us to the final question that determines who survives and who doesn't. What do you do when collapse doesn't look like collapse yet? Every collapse ends the same way, not with panic first, with denial. People don't react when systems weaken. They react when routines break, when shelves empty, when payments fail, when rules change overnight. By the time collapse feels real, the outcomes are already locked in. This is why history is so unforgiving. Those who wait for certainty always arrive last. And arriving last in a collapse means accepting whatever remains. Throughout history, survival has never belonged to the smartest, the strongest, or even the wealthiest. It belongs to those who understand timing. They don't predict dates. They recognize conditions. They don't panic. They reposition. And most importantly, they don't rely on systems that require perfection to survive. Because collapses aren't sudden disasters. They are slow failures that end abruptly. Normal life continues right up until it doesn't. Rome didn't collapse when people feared it would. The Great Depression didn't start when optimism disappeared. 2008 didn't feel dangerous until it was already irreversible. And today follows the same pattern. Markets still function. Institutions still operate. Life still feels familiar. That familiarity is not safety. It's lag. History shows us that the most dangerous moment is when everything still looks normal. Because that's when people stop asking the right questions. Who benefits from the system as it exists? Who absorbs the risk? Who quietly exits before the crowd? These questions determine outcomes long before headlines change. Collapse doesn't destroy wealth equally. It transfers it from the unprepared to the prepared, from those who trust narratives to those who trust patterns. And the pattern has never changed. Every empire collapses the same way. Every system fails gradually. Every warning is ignored because it doesn't feel urgent, until urgency arrives all at once. The purpose of understanding collapse isn't fear. It's clarity. Clarity gives you time. And time is the most valuable asset when systems fail. If this perspective changed how you see the world, then this channel is for you. Because here we don't chase trends. We study patterns. And if you want to understand what survives when systems don't, subscribe. We'll keep unraveling how wealth, power, and stability really work, long before normal breaks again.